Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere a little pungent. Imagine strolling through a pre-dawn alleyway in Edo, Japan. Yes, that Edo, back when the shoguns were still bossing everyone around and deodorant hadn't been invented yet. The sky is still that misty, watercolor gray, the lanterns are flickering low, and you're not exactly wide awake, but something hits your nose. No, it's not morning buns or fresh mochi, it's sharper, earthier, kind of like miso left in a sauna. That, my friend, is the smell of natto hosha, fermented soybeans, dried in rice husks and sun-aged for extra flair. Not exactly your local cafe special. But welcome to the weirdly savory world of early morning street food in Edo. And trust me, if you lived back then, you'd have two choices at 5 a.m, learn to love it or risk fainting before breakfast. You probably wouldn't survive past lunchtime without gagging once or twice. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Bonus points if it's 2 a.m. and you're battling insomnia with a side of tofu trivia. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle over damp stone pavement, the night air still clinging faintly to your skin. Wooden cartwheels creak in the distance. Too early for a proper market, too late for a decent sleep. Every lantern above you flickers like it's not quite sure it wants to help. And then you smell him before you see him. The vendor, barefoot, spine curved like a question mark. He walks slow, balancing two sloshing baskets hung from a bamboo pole over his shoulders. One side carries an old clay jar, the other is piled high with straw, cloth, and mystery. But it's your nose that does the detective work, something between dried miso and gym socks stewed in vinegar. It's aggressive, emotional, you nearly cry. The old man grins, revealing a jawline of tea-stained teeth. Up early, eh? Want to try some rice husk natto? You don't dare ask why it's husk-dried, or who thought that was a good idea. Clearly, Edo citizens liked to flirt with danger before breakfast. Now, natto already splits opinions like pineapple on pizza. But natto hoshi, this version, is a whole other beast. Fermented soybeans are laid out with rice husks in woven bamboo trays, then left to dry under the sun until they're rock hard. To eat them, folk smash the beans gently with a mallet, soak them in hot tea, and toss in some sea salt. The flavor, let's just say if you liquefied antique bookstore dust, added a hint of old sock, and stirred in nutty sweetness at the very end, you'd be close. Not good, but not a lie either. Historians still argue over whether this was a working-class staple or a famine-time desperation dish. Some say it was handed out during the Great Tenmai famine of 1787, when Edo's food supply was so bad, people were eating bark. Others suggest it was favored by low-ranking samurai. Long shelf life, high protein, and no refrigeration required. You watch a group of cart pullers squatting around a small fire pit, scooping cold rice and natto with their fingers. One of them grins. One bite of this, and you'll feel more awake than a splash from the Sumida River. Another guy shrugs. All that's missing is the scent of a dead cat. You almost laugh, not because the food's good, but because their survival has a stubborn charm. You're handed a small porcelain bowl. Inside, a few chunks of dried natto, now softened with hot green tea. You brace yourself, take a bite, and something weird happens. Yes, the first wave hits like a moldy sock, but right behind it comes something toasty, nutty, almost honest. A gust of morning wind whistles down the alley. An old woman walks by with rice crackers hanging from her walking stick. She doesn't stop, just glances at you and smiles with her toothless mouth. First time. Everyone has to have their first with natto. And you think about all those weird modern foods, blue cheese, kombucha, shrimp paste. They were all mistakes someone decided to eat anyway. The first temple bell of the day chimes faintly in the distance. Light begins to gather along the tiled rooftops. A black cat stretches and slinks out from behind a charcoal stand, tail flicking lazily. You stand up. Your belly's not full, but it feels warmed. Not from calories, but from having tasted something that makes no apologies for being what it is. Edo doesn't try to impress you. It just exists. It dares you to keep walking, to keep sniffing, to keep chewing. And if natto hoshi didn't chase you off, then maybe, just maybe, you're ready for the next bite. Because only a few alleys away, an old woman is setting up her tofu stand. and her tofu, it squeaks when you bite it. You follow the winding alley just as the sun begins to tint the tiled roofs in faint gold, brushing your sleeves against morning laundry already strung out to dry. There's a crispness in the air, but it's not cold. It's alert, and then there it is again. That scent, less aggressive than the natto, but no less strange. A little sour, a little nutty, and weirdly rubbery, like someone spilled soy milk on a hot sidewalk and let it bake into something sentient. You turn the corner and nearly walk into her. A tiny old woman, hunched, wrapped in 6 layers of patched indigo, like a dumpling made of winter. Her cart is no more than a wooden slab on wheels, resting next to a steaming kettle and a basket of ... tofu, except this tofu isn't white, it's beige and kind of shiny. And is it ... moving? She catches your eye and winks. It squeaks back, she says in a gravelly voice that sounds like it's been marinated in pickled plum juice since the Genroku era. You're not entirely sure if she means that figuratively or if the tofu has feelings, but you've come this far. So you crouch, laid neatly in rows are blocks of yubari tofu, or as she calls it, street tofu with a temper. It's made by boiling soy milk until it thickens, then letting it ferment under weighted stones for exactly 3 days, no more, no less. Each block is pressed flat, left out to air in cloth, and then steamed again over vinegar water to kill most of the bacteria. Not all, just enough to keep things legal-ish. You reach out and take a cube with the bamboo tongs she offers. It jiggles like jelly but squeaks between your fingers, like a damp rubber duck. You bring it to your mouth, and squeak. Actual squeak, like ... audible. You freeze. She nods, delighted. It likes you. You chew, slowly. The taste is oddly layered, a sour outer skin, like the bite of plain yogurt gone rogue, followed by a creamy middle, surprisingly sweet and nutty. It's bizarre, but not offensive, like biting into something that used to be a cheese, changed its mind, and became a soybean ghost instead. Historians still argue whether yubari tofu was an accident or a wartime invention. Some scrolls from 1803 describe a similar tofu, made by accident when a tofu seller forgot a batch during a flood. Others claim it was developed as an urban survival food for Edo's poorer districts, made to last without refrigeration but still soft enough to eat with bad teeth. As you chew, the old woman continues her morning rituals, pouring tea from one cup to another, steaming cloths, turning the blocks one by one like sacred scrolls. Her hands move in rhythm with a habit so old it predates her wrinkles. A customer approaches a fisherman in a frayed coat and bare feet. He grins at you. First time, he asks, biting into a block like it's a candy bar. Don't worry, if it doesn't squeak, it's already dead. You chuckle nervously, and he hands you a piece dipped in soy mustard glaze. The extra kick sends a warm buzz up your nose and down your chest. Suddenly, you're more awake than you've been in days. In a city like Edo, where the walls are made of paper and the nights of wind, you start to realize that food isn't just nourishment. It's noise, texture, mood. This tofu, it's practically performance art. A rooster crows from a nearby courtyard. The bells of a noodle shop tinkle. You can hear a baby crying 3 houses down, and someone reciting poetry to a dog. Tofu squeaks. The old woman hums, and just when you think it can't get weirder, she pulls out a tiny ceramic dish and places a spoonful of what looks like miso on it. Try this, she says. Tofu liver. You pause. Your own liver tightens. It's not actual liver, right? She smirks. Only if you believe hard enough. You taste it. It's rich, funky, slightly metallic, like soybeans aged in a swordsmith's toolbox, supposedly made by mashing fermented tofu with sake leaves and red rice mold, then aged in cedar barrels. It tastes like something forbidden, like licking the inside of a very clean dungeon. You want more. That's the thing about Edo's weird foods. They dare you, challenge you, whisper in your ear. Are you brave, or just bored? The old woman wraps a cube in waxed paper and hands it to you. For later, she says it'll still squeak by sunset. You bow your head and step back onto the path. The alley opens toward a footbridge, where a cluster of fishermen are gathered, their nets still dripping from the river. They're laughing, shouting, holding up ... Fish. No, not fresh fish. They're holding something in a wooden bucket. Something grayish, smelly. You can smell it before you get there. And it's stronger than natto, Because up next, my friend, is the infamous Edo delicacy that makes even stray dogs cry. Kusaya, the fish so rotten, it might actually be considered art. You cross the footbridge slowly, careful not to breathe too deeply. The smell hits before the wind even shifts. It's not just fishy dash, it's ... existential, like you've walked in on something that died twice and left a note. Below you, a group of men squat around a wooden bucket like it holds treasure. One of them pulls out a small, thin, silvery corpse by the tail and waves it in the air. It flops slightly, not from life, from stickiness. He grins and bites into it like it's a crisp apple. This, dear listener, is kusaya, the fermented sun-dried mackerel of your strangest dreams or nightmares. It depends on how you feel about things that smell like a laundromat in hell. You descend the steps slowly, joining the crowd. They barely notice you two busy telling jokes through mouths full of chew and courage. A street vendor notices you and calls out, new nose in the crowd. First, kusaya's free, if you survive. He hands you a thin slice on a wooden skewer. It's slightly warm, slightly wet, very alive in scent. The preparation of kusaya is an art form born from necessity and perfected through generations of reckless optimism. Fish, usually horse mackerel or sardine, is soaked not in brine, but in a kusaya gravy, a secret marinade that's reused over and over. Some families boast of using the same batch for over 100 years. They just ... top it off, like sourdough starter, but weaponized. After the soak, the fish is sun-dried for a day or two, ideally while the wind is just right enough to dry, not enough to blow away the neighbor's . You lift the skewer to your mouth and pause. The smell intensifies at proximity, like a dare ... sour, sharp, with a deep undercurrent of something almost ... cheesy, like blue cheese left in an abandoned shoe, but somehow still festive. You bite. There's resistance. The flesh pulls slightly, before giving way, and then salt. Deep salt, but also a sweetness, almost caramelized, tucked somewhere beneath layers of fish, funk, and fermented magic. Your jaw works. Your brain protests, but then your stomach gets involved and says, wait ... Maybe. Historians still argue about the origin of kusaya. Some claim it was a peasant's method to preserve fish without wasting salt during Edo's infamous salt tax. Others insist it began on the Izu Islands, where villagers reused fish brine out of sheer stubborn frugality. One Edo Pate poet described it as the flavor of ancestors crying out through the mouths of fools. Not exactly 5 stars on Yelp, but certainly memorable. A dog nearby whines and retreats. You don't blame it. A young boy tugs at your sleeve. He's grinning, teeth stained from miso and mischief. You know the best part, he whispers. My grandma boils it into tea. You blink. Boils ... fish. He nods. Kusayacha clears the lungs, or clogs them forever. Depends. Behind him, his grandmother stirs a pot over charcoal. Steam rises. You can smell the fishy ghost of it from here. One of the fishermen shouts, holding up a scorched leaf filled with chopped kusaya and pickled plum. Breakfast of champions. Another man retches quietly behind a barrel. Everyone laughs. This is part of the ritual. You don't just eat kusaya, you endure it. You survive it. And then you brag. You finish your bite. Your tongue tingles. It's not exactly good, but it's not boring. It's the kind of taste that makes you question your taste buds and their motives. Nearby, a teenage girl fans the smoke from her father's grill, flipping whole kusaya fillets over fire. The scent now is thicker, rounder like the fish is, making its final stand. You thank the vendor and move on. Nose still twitching. Down the road, you hear the distant chime of bells. Not religious ones, these are softer, melodic. A sweet scent rides the wind, now oddly floral, not rotten, not fermented. Your stomach perks up. Wary but curious, you follow the sound to a cart trimmed in colored glass, ribbons fluttering in the breeze. An old man stands behind it, stirring a pot of melted sugar over coal. He hums a tune that might be from a dream, or a childhood you never had. In his cart, small crystalline clusters of sugar, each the size of a fingertip, colored like jelly beans but matte and lumpy. Compito, he says. The wandering candy. You blink. Candy. He leans forward, but not like what you know. These have ... secrets. The fish smell lingers on your clothes, like a souvenir, but the sweetness draws you closer, because now, it's time to meet the candy that got lost in translation and may or may not be flavored with onions. The candy cart glows faintly in the morning light, like a tiny traveling shrine devoted entirely to sugar and strangeness. You step closer, and the scent that greets you is ... confusing. Sweet, yes, but also savory. There's a whisper of caramel, a hint of roast onion, and maybe, just maybe, a touch of something floral, like a dandelion that's been lightly pan-fried. The old man behind the cart doesn't look at you right away. He's too busy rotating a cast iron pan over coal, tilting it with the care of someone handling gold dust. Inside the pan, pastel-colored balls clink and roll a soft music of sugarstones compito. He murmurs, still stirring, but not the court kind. This is street compito, the wandering kind. You nod slowly, not wanting to interrupt whatever ritual you've just wandered into. The candies catch the light in odd ways. They aren't perfectly round. Cliff has jagged little spikes, like miniature planets or sugar sea urchins, and unlike the bright pinks and greens sold today, these are pale, smoky, and strangely matte, earth tones, dusky yellows, onion white. He gestures for you to try one. You pick a yellow one. It's oddly warm in your fingers. You pop it in your mouth and immediately regret it. It tastes like ... grilled scallion. No, like caramelized onion in hard candy form. At first, your brain screams no, but then a slow warmth spreads along your tongue, and you find yourself thinking, well, maybe. The old man smiles without teeth. It's a recipe from the Bakumatsu years, he says, when sugar was scarce and flavor ... creative. He offers you a blue-gray piece. This one's miso and ginger. You hesitate. And this, he says, holding up a purplish lump, is pickled plum with sea salt. Good for the throat, bad for the teeth. Historians still debate how compito became part of Edo street culture. The sugar art itself was imported from Portugal in the 16th century and eventually made its way to the imperial court, where it was considered an elite delicacy. Tiny sugar sculptures, gifted at weddings and royal audiences. But in Edo, it became something else entirely. Some say wandering monks began selling the cheaper versions, using molasses, rice syrup, and whatever herbs they had on hand. Others think it was exiled apothecaries, turning medicine into candy to keep their trade alive. The truth is likely both, and neither. You chew the plum candy and wince. It tastes like biting into an ancient rumor, salty, bitter, and oddly nostalgic. Old man laughs. You're still here, so that's something. He picks up a wooden box, flips it open, and reveals dozens more compito, each labeled in calligraphy. This, he says, is from the onion of Okayama. This one, from mushroom caps, dried in autumn sun. And this, garlic-flavored, good for flirting. You choke on air. He winks. Only if the flirting happens from far away. More customers wander over. Children with bare feet, men in straw coats, a pair of geisha on break. Their faces still painted but eyes sleepy. One child begs for a compito with fire in it. The old man obliges, handing over a piece dusted in chili powder and brown sugar. The boy squeals after one lick and runs in circles like a firework. A man near you whispers, "I once had his eel-flavored candy. Swore I saw gods afterward." You laugh, but you're not entirely sure he's joking. As the wind shifts, the scent of sugar fades and something marine takes its place. Fish again, but colder this time. Salty, wet. You realize the old man is packing up as swiftly as he appeared. His cart folds in sections like origami. He places a small pouch of compito in your hand. For later, he says, eat when you're sad or confused, or if you miss the taste of someone who used to love you. Then he disappears down a side alley, ribbons fluttering behind him. You're left alone, standing between flavors, between centuries. Then you hear it. Crunch, slurp. Someone just bit something very cold, very wet, and very ... rubbery. You follow the sound, past a noodle stand, past a wall painted with crane feathers, until you see it, a man crouched beside a block of ice. He's shaving it with a blade so thin it looks like a paper fan. The ice falls into a wooden bowl, soft and snowy, it with a thick grayish syrup. Then he adds what even is that? Tentacles. You step closer, just in time to see him crown the whole thing with a glazed frog. Yes, a literal frog, golden, slightly crisp, octopus ice. He says casually, with honey frog, and suddenly, onion candy feels like child's play. The man crouching by the ice block doesn't look up right away. He's too focused. blade moving with the precision of a surgeon or a poet. Each stroke sends a soft curl of ice fluttering into the wooden bowl below, where it settles like snow. That knows it's being watched. You're not the only one staring. A small group has gathered, half curious, half horrified. One old woman fans herself rapidly. A child whispers, "Is that frog real?" Yes, very real. Legs crossed, glistening in honey, roasted, maybe even smiling. You step closer. The ice shaver finally looks up. His eyes are sharp, calm. His hands don't stop moving. "You look warm," he says. "Try a bite." He gestures toward a finished bowl, sitting in a bed of bamboo leaves. Atop the fluffy mountain of shaved ice is a translucent drizzle gray, speckled, almost oily, and nestled in the center like a jewel. Tentacles, baby octopus arms, curled like sleepy commas. Around the base, slices of something pale and firm. Tofu, no, definitely jellyfish. And then, the centerpiece, one honey-glazed frog, sitting proudly like a shogun on a snow throne. "Octopus ice," he repeats, "with honey frog." You glance around, waiting for someone to yell prank, but no one does. This is real. This is Edo. You take the wooden spoon he offers. Dip it in. The ice melts instantly on your tongue. Cold, crisp, and then salt. Not sweet, like a chilled ocean breeze laced with soy and vinegar. The jellyfish is crunchy, not in a fried way. More like biting into wet cellophane that fights back. The tentacle is soft, marinated in something citrusy. Yuzu, maybe sake. It tastes like ocean memory. Then comes the frog. You hesitate. He tilts his head. "You don't have to eat it," he says gently. "But if you do, chew slowly. It's glazed in chestnut honey and grilled on cedar." You take a bite. The skin is crisp, the inside tender and earthy. A bit like duck, if the duck had lived in a lotus pond and only listened to shamisen music. Not bad, not great, but definitely something historians still puzzle over. Dishes like this, were they treats, dares, or medicine in disguise? Some believe octopus ice began during the Great Tempo Famine, Iba Sen or Iba Sen, when people preserved whatever they could with ice hauled from distant mountains. Others say it was a summertime delicacy for dock workers who mixed seafood with crushed ice to cool the body and shock the soul. One scholar described it as culinary witchcraft with seasonal flair. As you eat, the Iceman speaks. "This frog," he says, gesturing with his blade, "is caught during new moon. Less muscle tension, more flavor." You nod, because ... What else do you do when someone tells you their frog is moon sensitive? He pours more syrup, this time golden. Made from sweet potato sap, he explains, filtered through ash and tears. You pause. Whose tears? He shrugs. Whoever was nearby. There's a moment of silence. Then laughter. From him, from you, from a passing vendor hauling pickled daikon on his back. The moment is absurd, magical, sticky. More customers arrive. A young samurai with a bandaged ear, a dancer with feet stained from stage ink, a courier chewing dried kelp. Each receives a bowl. Each bows deeply, as if receiving wisdom. You finish your ice. The cold hits your core. You feel cleaner somehow. Or at least, stranger in a good way. The Iceman packs up without a word. His cart folds in on itself like a puzzle. Within seconds, he's gone, slipped into an alley that didn't exist a moment ago. You're left blinking in the morning light. Mouth tingling with salt, sugar, and amphibian truth. A voice behind you says, "That was the easy part." You turn. A girl with hair tied in cloth ribbons stands holding a bamboo tube. She pours it into a lacquer bowl. Something white and stringy slithers out, long, soft, glistening. You squint. "Noodles," she smiles. "Tororo soba," she says. "Slime noodles, made to slide down without chewing." You take the bowl. It wobbles slightly. The noodles are covered in a goo so sticky it forms peaks, like melted mozzarella made from tree sap and ghost stories. You sigh. Of course. Why not? Because you, my friend, are about to enter the slippery world of Edo's most misunderstood food, mountain yam noodles and the mysterious science of edible slime. You sit cross-legged on a flat stone under the eaves of a shuttered shop. The bowl rests in your lap, like something alive, trembling ever so slightly with each movement. Inside, the noodles glisten like threads of moonlight trapped in syrup. Thick, pale soba, tangled in a mess of goo so viscous it could hold a coin mid-air. The girl who handed it to you still stands nearby. arms crossed, watching with the quiet amusement of someone who's seen many first-timers suffer. Parole, so, she says again, gently. Best if you don't think, just slurp. You lift your chopsticks and attempt to pick up a bundle. The noodles slide away like eels, refusing to be caught. When you finally manage a grip, a string of white goo stretches from the bowl to your hand, then snaps with a plop. You bring it to your lips, and you slurp. It's cold. Instantly cold, like someone poured snowmelt into your mouth and added ... What even is that texture? Like grated glue, or the memory of a smoothie. It doesn't chut negotiates ... But then comes the flavor, earthy nutty, with a subtle zing, like horseradish and pine. Not bad, just ... unexpected. The goo. That's Terrororo grated mountain yam, or yamaimo, known for its long strands of That's right, missilage, the polite term for delightful, edible slime. You glance up. The girl smiles. You didn't gag. Impressive. She pours more broth from a bamboo flask, its steam rising with the faint scent of bonito flakes and dried kelp. The combination is oddly comforting. Salty, a little smoky, with a tingle at the back of your throat. Where do you get the yams? You ask. She points toward the forested hills beyond the city walls. We dig them from the shadows. Only before the sun touches the roots, makes the slime stronger. Of course it does. Historians still puzzle over the popularity of Tararo soba during the Edo period. Some claim it was a common meal for tired travelers, easy to digest, quick to prepare, and effective against summer heatstroke. Others insist it was food for poets, who believed the slipperiness helped their words slide more beautifully from the tongue. There are records of Iduara haiku competitions where contestants ate tararo beforehand as a creative stimulant. The results, flowing. If messy, you take another bite. This time, you let it glide down whole. No resistance, no friction. Just ... down. You feel oddly serene. Nearby, an old man in a straw hat eats from his own bowl, nodding slowly. It's not just food, he says. It's a lesson. You don't always need to bite life. Sometimes, you let it slip through. He doesn't elaborate. He doesn't need to. The girl offers you a side dish, thin slices of cucumber pickled in plum vinegar and dusted with sesame seeds. Sharp, bright, bracing. It cuts through the tororo like a splash of cold water in a hot bath. You take your time with this meal. You don't rush. Edo isn't in a hurry today, and neither are you. A boy runs by holding a wooden pole with an eel tied to it like a flag. A dog chases him, barking joyfully. Somewhere, a flute plays a melody that sounds like rain learning to dance. You set your empty bowl down and bow your head. The girl picks it up without a word and disappears into the alley. Then the breeze shifts. You smell something rich, sharp, alcoholic. You follow it. The scent leads you down toward the southern wharf, where the river carries a faint shimmer of sake and salt under the shade of a collapsed storage shack. A man stirs a bubbling pot with a plank of cedar. He ladles out something pale and soft, sliced turnips, soaked in thick broth. The scent is bold, almost offensive, like wine gone rogue. He nods toward you. Sake turnips, he says. You eat these before the fever gets you. You sit, because you've survived slime noodles, candy onions, and frogs on ice. What's a turnip drunk on its own ambition? The man's fire crackles low beneath a battered iron pot, its sides dark with soot and time. He doesn't use a ladle so much as a flat wooden scoops, something that once served as a floorboard, judging by the nail holes. He stirs slowly, as if he's coaxing secrets from the broth. You crouch beside him in the shade of the warped wharf beams. The scent is sharp, unmistakable sake, not the elegant kind poured from porcelain flasks at court banquets. No, this is the crude, potent stuff, the kind used to numb teeth, disinfect wounds, and, apparently, boil root vegetables. He offers you a steaming bowl. Inside are thick, round slices of white turnips, soft enough to cut with a glance. They float in a broth the color of bronze, shimmering faintly with fat and something you hope is not sediment. Careful, he warns, still strong. You sip. Warmth spreads immediately, not heat warmth, like a small fire lit inside your chest. The flavor is complex, sweet and sour, with a bitter edge that clings to the roof of your mouth. The turnip itself has gone soft, but holds a whisper of bite. It tastes like medicine that doesn't entirely hate you. You blink. The world feels a little clearer, a little blurrier. Somehow both S-caged turnips, he says, were once food for the sick, or for those pretending to be sick. During the summers, when fever came with the mosquitoes, historians still debate whether the dish was truly medicinal or simply the result of desperation. Sake was plentiful in Edo, especially the rough, cloudy kind brewed by dockside cooperatives. Turnips were cheap, fast-growing, and easy to ferment. The combination, genius or madness, often the same thing. You take another bite, this time with a bit of pickled mustard leaf the man offers from a jar. The sharpness cuts through the alcohol, grounding it. Some people used to boil these with ginger, he adds, to ward off spirits, evil spirits. You ask. He shrugs. Mostly stomach ones. Around you, dockworkers sprawl on crates, sipping from chipped bowls. One man is asleep with a half-eaten turnip resting on his chest. Another hums softly as he ties knots with rope, lips stained with sake broth. The man cooking turns his gaze toward the river. One summer, he says, the fever took 30 men from this wharf. Only those who drank turnip broth survived. You nod. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. In Edo, food isn't always about sustenance. Sometimes it's superstition served warm. You notice a small stand behind him, a makeshift stall, with glass jars filled with oddly shaped pickles. One has turnip slices so thin they look like paper fans. Another glows faintly pink. Another, disturbingly black. He catches your glance. Those are for the night shift, he says. You eat them after dark, so you forget what you saw during the day. You don't ask. Instead, you let the sake warmth settle in your bones. The sun is rising higher now, glinting off the river like a blade. Flies circle lazily above the fish baskets. And then chirp, chirp, chirp. You hear it before you see it. Crickets, and not the garden variety. These are loud, proud, and being skewered onto tiny sticks. You turn slowly. Across the wharf, a boy holds up a tray like a trophy. It's filled with grilled insects, shining in the sun. Their legs curl delicately as if still ready to leap. Next to him, an older man is wrapping candy, clear, glassy pebbles with small shadows inside. You step closer and realize those shadows are wings. Insect candy, the man says, grinning, and cricket skewers, sweet and salty, popular with the kids. Of course they are, because this is Edo, and the next bite might just chirp back. The boy with the tray beams at you like he's selling gold, not bugs. His hair sticks up in chaotic tufts, his kimono is too short, and his bare feet are dusty from the wharf. He lifts a skewer triumphantly, 6 crickets lined up neatly, each one glazed in soy sauce and toasted to a deep mahogany sheen. Fresh catch, he announces, as if these crickets were pulled from the sea rather than the cracks between floorboards. You try to look impressed, or at least not alarmed. Next to him, an older man tends a small fire, rotating skewers slowly over glowing coals. The smell is pleasant, somehow nutty, smoky, like roasted nuts or popcorn left a minute too long. You feel your stomach already buzzed from sake turnip start to whisper, well, it can't be worse than frog. Want sweet or salty? The boy asks. Don't you hesitate, or both, he adds, with the confidence of a young entrepreneur who knows no fear. You point to the candy. It's beautiful. In its own unnerving way, translucent amber orbs wrapped in thin paper, each one with a perfectly preserved insect inside. Tiny winged beetles, crickets, even one that looks suspiciously like a bee, sugar and starch syrup. The old man says, handing you one, boiled slow, cool, fast, no legs fall off. Reassuring. You pop the candy in your mouth. The outer layer is smooth and sweet, like rock candy. Then your tongue finds the crunchy, unmistakable, delicate crack of exoskeleton. You chew. It's earthy, not bad. The beetle tastes vaguely of sesame and grass. You swallow. You survive. The boy claps. You're one of us now. Historians still debate how widespread insect cuisine really was in Edo. Some argue it was regional, popular in areas where protein was scarce and the summers long. Others suggest it was more of a novelty, especially for children who saw it as a treat and a challenge. What's certain is that vendors like these existed, and their recipes evolved over generations. One surviving scroll from 1821 lists ingredients for cricket brittle, including molasses, rice starch, and something poetically called the dust of first frost. You watch as a woman in a straw hat buys 3 skewers of crickets and bites into one with the nonchalance of someone chewing sunflower seeds. She offers you another skewer, You accept. The cricket is light, crispy, its legs crunch delicately, and the soy glaze adds a nice umami punch. If you close your eyes, it's just another snack, a bit smoky, a little spicy, and frankly, better than some vending machine chips you've had in modern airports. The boy proudly displays his premium skewer thicker bugs, coated in what he calls eel sauce. You don't ask. Instead, you sit for a moment and watch the rhythm of it all. Children trade candies with deadpan solemnity. An old man hums a song as he rotates skewers over charcoal. A woman counts coins from a lacquer box shaped like a cicada. Even the seagulls seem to be keeping a respectful distance. Some say crickets bring luck, the candy man tells you. Others say they bring messages from the dead. Which do you believe? He shrugs. I sell them either way. You smile. Edo is many things, but predictable is not one of them. Your skewer finished, your mouth still tingling with sweet soy. Insect umami, you stretch your legs and stand. The boy tugs your sleeve again. You ever tried fish that could kill you? That gets your attention. He points inland, toward the shadowed alleys behind the fish market. There's a guy who makes porridge out of fugu. You blink. Pufferfish, the infamous delicacy with a neurotoxin so potent it can stop your lungs in minutes. Even today, chefs need licenses. Back in Edo, the license was a funeral waiting to happen. You follow him, past the candy stand, past the wagons full of dried squid and pickled seaweed, until the sounds fade behind you. The alleys here are darker, narrower. The air feels still, like it's listening. And then, at the end of the lane, a small figure squats over a pot, steam rising slowly. The boy whispers. He only sells to people he's seen eat bugs. You kneel. And the man ladles out a bowl of pale, shimmering porridge. Fugu kanji. Because why settle for bugs, when your next bite might be your last? You kneel in the dim alley, stone cold beneath your knees. The steam rising from the bowl isn't dramatic. It's subtle, whispering, almost shy. The porridge glows faintly in the morning light, like it knows what it's capable of. Across from you, the old man who made it sits cross-legged, motionless. His robes are stained, but his hands are clean. The clean nails trimmed, fingers long and bony like calligraphy brushes. He doesn't say anything, just watches. The bowl in your hand is heavier than expected. The surface of the congee is smooth, with delicate slices of pufferfish, fugu layered like pale petals across the top. A few green onions float lazily. You spot one paper-thin slice of yuzu peel, probably there just to distract you from the potential death waiting underneath. Eat. Slowly, the boy says behind you, voice suddenly solemn. You nod, because of course. Who rushes death? The porridge smells. Gentle. Fish, rice, a hint of citrus. Innocent, really. But your heart drums louder than your common sense. You lift the spoon. Take the first sip. It's warm, silky. The rice has dissolved into near liquid, broken down by slow heat. The flavor is delicate, faintly sweet, deeply umami, but not fishy. Then, the fugu arrives. Firm, almost springy, with a clean taste that lingers just long enough to make you wonder, am I feeling something in my lips? Is that tingling? Is that goodbye? You pause. Nothing happens. You breathe. Still breathing. Across from you the old man nods once, not in approval, more like you survived this long. Congratulations. Historians remain unsure how common fugu really was on Edo's streets. Officially, the Tokugawa shogunate banned its sale after multiple deaths, but that just made it more alluring, especially in the black markets and back alleys, where risk was a seasoning all its own. Some say the dish originated in poorest wards and traveled east by night, carried by cooks who had nothing left to lose. Others believe exiles and ronin, banned from sword carrying, turned to knife work in kitchens. Fugu, their new deadly art. You finish the bowl slowly, each bite a gamble, each swallow a surrender, and then he speaks. One fish feeds two, sometimes three. You blink, fourth gets the whisper. You stare. What whisper? He doesn't answer. Just begins packing up. He doesn't charge you, just points to the edge of the alley, where lanterns flicker in a sudden breeze. You walk toward them, heartbeat louder than your footsteps, and when you emerge into the sunlit market again, it's like the whole city exhales with you. Your knees wobble. You laugh, because you didn't die yet. The boy runs off without a word. Some tests don't need grading. You follow the smells again, safely mundane. This time smoke, charcoal, something roasted. You find a woman crouched beside a cluster of coals, fanning a basket. She lifts the lid and reveals a dozen eggs, dark and glistening as if lacquered. Next to her, a jar of something bright green, and jiggly. She waves you over. Smoke eggs and jellyfish jelly, she says. Because, of course, what else would follow a near-death meal? You sit. She hands you a skewer with one egg, the shell darkened by straw smoke, the yolk faintly orange. It smells of firewood and thyme. Next, she spoons a wobbly cube into your palm. It shivers. They're green, translucent, with threads of jellyfish suspended inside like frozen lightning. You bite. The egg is rich, savory, smoked to the core, with a saltiness that hits your molars. The jelly, cold, briny, a little chewy, a lot confusing. It tastes like a tide pool that became sentient and wanted a hug. Historians barely mention this pairing, but recipes survive. The eggs were smoked in straw during rice harvest festivals, believed to preserve wisdom. The jellyfish was boiled, soaked in vinegar, and mixed with green seaweed served to ward off evil dreams. You eat both. No dreams disturbed. The woman grins. You're still standing. Must mean the fish liked you. You grin back, unsure whether to feel proud or worried. Nearby, a group of sailors eat quietly. One sprinkles ground kelp over his egg. Another dips the jelly in plum paste. And then, you hear laughter. Real, belly-shaking laughter. You turn to see a man unwrapping what looks like seaweed-wrapped meat. It gleams in the sun, and the smell is rich roasted, salty, meaty, a mix of land and sea. A small boy nearby whispers, "That's skin wrap from old Tosa." You raise an eyebrow. He nods. Was a prison recipe. Of course it was, because you've had slime, bugs, poison, and ghosts. Now it's time to eat what the prisoners used to beg for. The laughter fades as you approach the group gathered around the makeshift fire pit. They're passing around strips of something dark, shiny, and glistening at the edges. It's been roasted just enough to curl slightly, like it's recoiling. From your curiosity, one man sees you eyeing it. He holds out a strip. "Nori no kawamaki," he says. "Seaweed skin wraps. From Tosa, back when prisoners still sang while they cooked." You accept the offering. That's warm, slick, a little sticky. The outer layer is nori seaweed, toasted and wrinkled. Inside is something denser, meaty, smoky. You take a bite. The outer crunch gives way to a surprisingly tender center. Not quite fish, not quite meat. Somewhere in between. Chewy, but not rubbery. Like beef jerky that went swimming and came back philosophical. The man watches you chew. "It's eelskin," he says. "Scraped, dried, and rolled with pickled burdock and shredded tuna bones." You pause, mid-chew. "Tuna, bones." He nods. "Boiled until soft, ground into paste. Makes it stick." You nod, swallow, wait, see if your teeth rebel. They don't. Another man chuckles and pulls out a flask of barley tea, pouring you a cup. It's smoky and bitter, and you're grateful. The wrap was delicious, but it lingers like a memory you weren't ready to remember. Historians still argue about the origin of nori no kawamaki. Some say it began in Tosa province's prison system during the late Edo period. Meat was rare, seaweed was cheap, and fish offcuts were plentiful. Prisoners used the scrap seal skins. Fish paste, vinegared root stew creates something that tasted like freedom, or at least not like punishment. Others claim it was a peasant dish, adapted during long winters when nothing fresh could be found. Still others believe it was invented by workers who wanted something they could eat one-handed while hauling ropes. You take another bite. The flavors deepen. The burdock root adds a pleasant crunch. The eelskin has a smoky depth that surprises you. It's good, which makes the history feel even heavier. The man beside you says they used to call it one bite parole. If you made it well enough, the guards might let you eat in silence. You chew slower after that. Around the fire. No one speaks loudly. It's a sacred kind of silence, one reserved for food that's earned its place. A woman nearby unwraps a bundle of the wraps tied in rice paper. She places one on the fire for a moment, just long enough for the seaweed to blister and pop. The smell is rich, salty, almost bacon-like. You realize then this food is survival. Stylized, it's hardship wrapped in ocean flavor. It's creativity, forged in limits, and you're grateful for it. A bell rings in the distance. Not from a temple. This one is duller, lower, a gravekeeper's bell. Someone nearby murmurs, "Pickling time." You look up. A man with a long-handled basket is walking toward the graveyard with jars strapped to his back. The others begin to rise, not in fear, in familiarity. "Come on," one says to you. "You haven't had Edo pickles until you've tasted the ones buried next to ghosts." You blink. He nods. It's time for graveyard pickles. Because naturally, after eel skin and tuna bones, the next course is vegetables aged in ancestral soil. The graveyard sits on the edge of the city, where the alleys end and the weeds take over. It's quiet, not temple quiet, but forgotten quiet. The kind that doesn't shush you, just listens. You follow the man with the pickle jars as he walks between crooked gravestones and moss-covered stone lanterns. The air smells like damp earth, incense, and faintly vinegar. He stops at a mound that doesn't look like much, just a patch of turned soil beneath a cedar tree. With a grunt, he kneels and begins to dig with his bare hands. The others wait, in a respectful semicircle, not speaking. You don't know if this is a food ritual or an exorcism. He lifts out a ceramic jar wrapped in oiled cloth. The outside is crusted in dirt and roots. The inside, pickles, pale green, soft, glossy. He opens it slowly, and a sharp, heady scent fills the air. Poor, pungent, but not unpleasant. Like a memory that fermented into something edible. 2 months, in ancestral soil, he says, offering you a slice with wooden chopsticks. No sunlight, only silence. You hesitate. Is this ... safe? He shrugs. It hasn't killed me yet. You bite. The texture is impossibly soft, almost creamy. The flavor explodes: sharp vinegar, deep earth, a subtle sweetness like overripe melon, and something else, something ... floral. Maybe incense, maybe illusion. It tastes like something that remembers being a vegetable. You chew slowly, respectfully. These are Hokazuka grave pickles. And yes, they were real, though not always literally buried in cemeteries. The term was used for pickles aged underground, sometimes near family altars or ancestral sites. The idea was spiritual, to infuse the food with the memory and protection of the dead. Historians argue over how literal the burial was. Some claim it was symbolic, storing jars in shaded root cellars called spirit holes. Others insist families actually buried jars near relatives' graves during Obon or the Ghost Festival, as offerings that doubled as provisions. You're not sure what to believe, but these pickles are hauntingly good. The man continues handing them out. Pickled lotus root, still crisp despite the time underground. Turnip greens darkened to olive black. Carrot slivers stained purple from umeboshi plums. Each one tastes like it remembers a story. Each one settles differently in your chest. A woman speaks, voice soft. These were for the living, but also for the dead. When you eat them, you share the same breath. A chill creeps up your spine, but it's not fear, it's reverence. Like eating in a library of souls. The man seals the jar and bows to the earth. The others follow. You do too. As you leave, no one speaks for a while. The silence is warm, full. You walk until the sun hits your face again, and just like that, Edo returns. No ghosts, no soil, just steam and chatter, and the sudden pop of a lid opening. A small stand appears ahead, nestled against a windmill. It's run by a thin man in a patchwork coat, boiling something in a blackened kettle. He waves you over. Firefly broth, he asks, or tea made from bones. You blink. Both. He grins. You've got the spirit. Because of course, what else do you drink after eating from the earth? Light, and what's left when the light is gone. The stand is nothing more than a plank balanced on 2 crates, but the smells rising from it are enough to pull your curiosity forward like a leash. Sweet smoke, toasted rice, and something metallic, not unpleasant, just hard to place. The man behind the stand looks like he hasn't slept in a season. His coat is patched with fabrics from at least 4 provinces, and his eyebrows twitch like they're having a separate conversation. He gestures to 2 pots over charcoal. One steams gently, the other bubbles like it's thinking about erupting. Want the glow, he says, nodding at the steam, or the grit. Tapping the bubbling one, you point to the steam. Always start with the glow. He ladles out a clear broth into a ceramic cup. Inside float tiny flecks green, gold, and silver. You squint. Firefly broth, he says. Well, not actual fireflies. Dried anchovy, plum vinegar, powdered bamboo ash, and a few drops of lamp oil. You hesitate. Lamp oil, He shrugs. Just a whisper, for brightness. You sipped it single quotes as ... luminous. No really, it feels like light clear, tangy, with a salty kick that hits the back of your throat and leaves a warm buzz in your chest. There's a faint sweetness, like honey left in the sun, and a minerality that makes your tongue tingle. You take another sip and swear. You can see colors a little sharper. Historians still debate the legend of Hotaru-jiru, or firefly broth. One scroll from 1796 describes it as a night-seeing remedy, sold to aging samurai who couldn't patrol after dusk. Others suggest it was made for children with fevers, to bring back their light. No records confirm fireflies were ever actually used, thank goodness, but the name stuck because of the way the broth caught the lantern glow. You finish the cup, and the man nods. You're ready. He lifts the second pot and pours something thick and murky into a bowl. It's grayish, slightly gelatinous, smells like roasted bone, wet straw, and burnt rice. Bone tea, he says. Chicken spine, fish fins, crushed clamshells, boiled for 3 days, with a touch of dried persimmon for grace. You brace yourself, and sip. It's heavy, deep, like a liquid memory of a winter night spent staring at smoke, savory to the point of silence. Not bitter, but bone deep. There's a surprising sweetness at the end, something gentle, like a hand placed quietly on your shoulder. He leans in. It fixes your dreams. You believe him. You sip slowly, the warmth curling around your ribs. The wind picks up, lifting the smell of smoke and fish into the air. A woman nearby laughs. You glance over. She's unwrapping a parcel of crackers shaped like animal bones. A child snatches one and chomps it joyfully. Iron cookies, the man mutters. Just for fun. Not actual iron. Probably. You hand the bowl back, feeling grounded, calm, maybe even slightly repaired. He pulls something from behind the stander, tiny pouch tied in red string. For luck, he says, and digestion. You tuck it into your sleeve. In Edo, you learn not to question gifts. Just then, a flurry of footsteps passes a messenger, out of breath, waving a scroll. They're selling leftovers from the shogun's kitchen. He shouts, vanishing down an alley. People stir, eyes widen. Someone starts running. You of course follow, because when else are you going to taste the scraps of history itself? You dart down narrow lanes, past incense stalls and paper lanterns, until you find the crowd clustered around a shaded corner stand. The man behind it is nervous, shifty-eyed. He pulls a cloth aside to reveal a steaming pot and a tray of cold cuts. There's venison, mushroom stalks, slivers of bamboo shoots soaked in ginseng. From the castle, he whispers, leftovers, still warm. Don't ask how. You don't. You just reach for a slice, because tonight, your next bite comes straight from the table of power, second-hand, maybe, but still laced with the flavor of privilege and, possibly, deer marrow. The pot bubbles low and secretive, its surface oily with broth that's clearly been steeping since before the sun came up. Around it, the crowd pulses, shoulders brushing, eyes darting, no one quite looking directly at the vendor as they pay. This isn't a normal food stall. It's quieter, shadier, as if even the breeze knows to mind its own business here. You step closer. The smell is incredibly earthy, rich, with a hint of sweetness hiding under layers of roasted meat and medicinal herbs. A man to your left takes a bite and immediately closes his eyes like he's seeing through time. Shogun's leftovers, the vendor whispers again. Just the scraps. You nod. No further explanation needed. He ladles a spoonful of thick stew into a ceramic bowl. Inside, chunks of venison float alongside ginkgo nuts, slivers of mountain yam, and what looks like dried lotus root. On top, a small dollop of something gelatinous and translucent, possibly deer tendon, possibly destiny. You take a bite. The venison is tender, gamey, but not wild. It's been simmered so long it practically apologizes as it falls apart. The broth tastes like a forest in autumn, deep, warm, slightly bitter, but with a faint medicinal sweetness from ginseng and maybe, just maybe, a touch of dried orange peel. The tendon, slippery, satisfying, somewhere between food and confession. Next to you, a man murmurs he only sells what the guards smuggle out. End of day, never the same stew twice. Someone else adds, they say once he served turtle, royal turtle, made 3 men weep. You believe it. Historians rarely record these kinds of dishes. What the shogunate is documented in exquisite detail: seasonal menus, imported delicacies, rituals around rice placement. But what happened to the leftovers? That's where stories ferment. Some say the castle servants siphoned off scraps to feed their families. Others whisper of bribed guards who passed tidbits to underworld buyers. But the truth, lost somewhere in the steam. You sip the broth again and feel ... regal, not powerful, just oddly balanced, like your organs just signed a truce. The vendor hands you a second item, a cold cut of root vegetable wrapped in cured meat, tied with a thread of nori. You bite. The crunch gives way to sweetness and salt, layered like old poetry, simple, but hiding tricks. Someone asks the vendor what the shogun actually ate that morning. He grins. Breakfast. Porridge with dried abalone and golden pine nuts. He nods toward the pot, was scraped from the bottom of his cook's pot. A man in line chuckles. Still better than anything I've ever tasted. Suddenly, the wind changes, and a new smell cuts through the market, something warm, yeasty, slightly burnt. You follow your nose. A narrow alley leads away from the main stalls, down toward a small canal, where the lanterns grow dim and the crowd thins. You hear quiet laughter, the sound of water lapping against stone, and then crack, a soft pop, like dough being torn open. You round the corner. A low wooden cart sits at the edge of the canal. Two figures huddle beside it, legs dangling. Over the water, they're eating what looks like sweet dumplings but misshapen, cracked, oozing. The vendor, a sleepy-looking woman wrapped in layers of linen, glances up and nods. Last batch of the night, she murmurs. She holds up a thick, lumpy cake, golden brown with blackened edges, steam curling from the top. Fermented pumpkin cake, she says. Best eaten before curfew, if you can stay awake long enough to chew it. You sit down beside her, the stone cool against your legs. She hands you a slice. The crust is crisp, caramelized. Inside, it's soft, almost custard-like. Sweetness dances on your tongue, but not the sugar kind. More like something ancient, something aged. Fermented pumpkin, rice flour, soy mash, and crushed roasted chestnuts. No spices, just time. You chew slowly. The moon reflects in the canal. Crickets sing softly from the reeds, and somewhere, someone laughs like they've survived something ridiculous. You've eaten bugs, slime, frogs, poison, jellyfish, eelskin, ghost pickles, and shogun stew. And now, with this warm, sweet, sleepy cake melting on your tongue, you realize something. This is the last bite of the day, because Edo isn't trying to impress you anymore. It's trying to tuck you in. You lean back on your hands, the warmth of the fermented pumpkin cake still lingering on your tongue, heavy and mellow like a lullaby sung in molasses. The canal beside you gurgles softly, and the stars blink in the water's rippling reflection. Distant and content, the woman at the cart has stopped serving. The griddle is off. Her head bows low over her knees, as if she too is resting between bites of memory. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the sounds of Edo at night blend into a single hum. Underwater, the insects, the creak of bamboo shutters, settling in their frames, and the faint echo of someone plucking a shamisen across the river. This city never truly sleeps, but it sighs deeply. Her voice nearby startles you back, soft, amused. You made it this far. You open your eyes to see a young man crouched beside you, face half hidden in the shadow of his wide straw hat. He sets down a small cloth-wrapped bundle with reverence, as if it might contain a relic or a secret. Inside are three things: a thin rice cracker, blackened slightly at the edges, a wedge of something pale yellow, firm with a gloss that suggests custard but smells faintly, ... marine, and a cup of pale, steaming liquid that swirls with floating bits of kelp and dried herbs. You glance at him. He smiles. The city's last snack. You won't find it on menus. You won't find it at sunrise. It's for now, just now. You start with the cracker. It shatters in your mouth like old glass, crispy, delicate, and surprisingly smoky. You taste roasted millet, sea salt, and a trace of charcoal. It's not showy, it's farewell in flavor form. Next, the wedge. You nibble the edge cautiously. It's pressed egg tofu, fermented overnight in miso, then brushed with sea urchin paste. The texture is creamy, the taste oddly floral-like. Someone taught cheese how to sing in Japanese. Historians call this kind of dish yozakura tabemono, night blossom food. Not official meals, not festival fare, but improvised snacks made in the hours just before curfew. Passed around alleys, shared on docks, or sold quietly from carts with no names. Food, meant to end the day without apology. The drink is the final note. Hot barley tea mixed with bone broth, a pinch of dried yuzu peel, and a swirl of vinegar. It wakes you gently, then lays you right back down again. The young man doesn't eat, he just watches. When you finish, he nods. You're done now. You believe him, because your belly is full, but not too full. Your head is soft, but not spinning. Your tongue remembers 100 flavors. Your heart is a little slower, a little quieter. The streets are mostly empty now. The lanterns flicker as if breathing. A stray dog yawns and curls up beside a rice sack. Somewhere, a temple bell chimes once. The man gathers his bundle, stands, and walks into the dark without a sound. You stay a little longer, because you can, because no one's rushing you, because in this moment, you're more memory than person. And Edo hums around you, steady and strange. You think of the natto that made your eyes water, the tofu that squeaked back, the frog on ice, the fish that tried to kill you, and every warm bowl, pickled root, skewered bug, and ghost-flavored broth in between. You smile, because none of it was boring, none of it was ordinary. And somehow, all of it made sense, at least in this odd, ancient lullaby of a city. The night has settled over Edo like a well-worn blanket, soft, a little frayed, and stitched with the murmurs of the day's last movements. The lamps flicker low now, their oil thinning to a quiet sputter. Even the air feels slower, like the city itself is exhaling. You rise slowly from your spot beside the canal, bones creaking in rhythm with the city's sighs. Your legs feel heavy, but it's the good kind of heavy, the kind that follows fullness, both of belly and story. You don't know where you're walking now. You just move, past the shuttered food stalls, the faded banners, the sleeping cats curled into bowls of warm roof tile, past fishermen snoring on empty nets, past laundry that sways like ghosts above the alley's until you reach it. A wooden bridge, barely lit, arching gently over a canal that reflects the sky like polished ink. A single figure stands at the center. He holds a small brazier in one hand, a covered tray in the other. You approach, without a word. He opens the tray. Inside, 3 round rice cakes, pale and puffy, dusted in roasted soybean flour. They smell faintly of chestnut and wood smoke. One has a dark center, just beginning to ooze out a fermented sweet bean paste. Sharp and earthy. You pick one up. It's still warm. The outside soft, the inside dense. You bite and it's the simplest thing you've eaten all night, and maybe the best. The man offers you a folded slip of paper. Inside is a single phrase written in brushstroke. Nothing tastes like the last thing. You nod, because it's true. This isn't just the last bite of your night, it's the last bite of someone's memory, of a city that once fed its people with boldness, strangeness, and quiet magic. It's the last flavor before curfew, the one that says, you've seen enough for today. Rest now. You finish the rice cake slowly. The man closes the tray, lowers his brazier, and disappears into the dark like a dream you didn't know you were dreaming. You remain on the bridge for a while, listening, not to the city, but to your own body, to your breath, to the tiny orchestra of flavors still echoing on your tongue. The soy, the smoke, the frog, the sweetness buried in vinegar, the spice hidden in candy. You remember every bite, even the ones that scared you, especially those, because that's the beauty of Edo's strangest foods. They dared you to feel, to pause, to notice, and now, you're ready to let it all go. The wind moves like a blanket pulled gently over your shoulders. The stars blink once, and you close your eyes. Now, dim the lights if you haven't already. Let your body sink. Let the flavors fade into the soft hush of sleep. There's nothing more to taste, nothing more to chew. The journey is full. The belly content in your story, for now, is finished.